Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff podcast. My name is David.
And I am Ted with Countdown to the Geeks.
How are you doing today, Ted? Or tonight, I should say.
Amazing. Also very busy, but it's been a good weekend. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting, busy weekend on the podcast front. Um, I've been doing some editing for some Our Story stuff, and I did an interview today with Van Lathan Jr., and he was really sick. So I told him he didn't have to do it, but he's still like a trooper, still
What a trooper.
recorded.
There you go.
And yeah, we got some interesting. We talked about some very interesting things that I'm going to release on the Patreon first. If I do release it to the public, it'll be later, but I definitely want to release it on Patreon. And I got a
Nice.
couple of other people that I'm doing editing for right now. And like I mentioned to you before, in the future, I do want to have you on the Our Story segment and talk about your experiences and opinions of Star Wars because everyone has really kind of a different Star Wars story, and
Sure.
it's really entertaining to hear people people's point of view of
Yeah.
how they've experienced Star Wars. But
I'm down, man. You let me know.
for sure, first things first, though, I want to give out shout outs to our patrons that help support the podcast that are basically helping us fund our trip to Celebration in London. So on the purple tier, Chris Simpson, who is in that region. Hopefully, we get to meet up. Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel. On the red tier, Fenrir526, Matt Heath, Maya Morris. On the black tier, Maka Tautala, Nathan Shank, Evan Opaker, who is in that area, might meet up with him as well. And of course, Liam McCallion, who we're thinking we are going to meet up with. I don't think he's going to Celebration, but he lives in that area and he says he definitely wants to meet. So we might do some video. We might do an hour stories. I'm not quite sure yet, but hopefully we do get to see a lot of you guys in person and get to talk about some of the moments that we've had together on the podcast that sometimes they bring up in chat. So feel free to chime in on chat. And without further ado, let's talk about the topics for this week.
Sure.
So one of the big ones was the fact that Pedro Pascal hosted SNL Saturday night, of course, along with Coldplay. And I thought it was a pretty good episode, very funny. I know SNL kind of gets a bad rap for not being as funny as it used to be. And it seems like every season they say, well, the previous cast was better. But this felt like a classic episode for SNL. What do you think, Ted?
I am probably in the minority. Also, though, the people that complain that Saturday Night Live isn't as funny as it used to be are either from an older generation
Mhm.
or they tend to let their political they tend to see everything with their political tarnished minds, and so things are less funny when it
Yeah.
tends to be making fun of things that are part of your political affiliations. I have found SNL to be quite funny every year, and of course there's some episodes that are better than others. This was a above this was above average. It was great. It's not one of the best, but Pascal is a fantastic actor. He's got a wide range of things he can do. He comes off extremely genuine in anything that he does, and I love to see him in more comedic roles. The film he did with Nicolas Cage has a very long title. It came out last year. I'm not gonna remember what it's called,
Yeah.
but it was hilarious. I was laughing throughout, and so I was looking forward to this one, and it did not disappoint. Lot of great skits, some that I hope they return to from time to time. But all in all, very enjoyable episode.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They did a lot of marketing and press for The Last of Us combined with his appearance on SNL. I think there was a TikTok of him dancing with a clicker, and that got a lot of play. That got a lot of views, and it was pretty funny. There's also some media where Pedro Pascal is rehearsing and he hears something in the background and it's a clicker walking around. And you figure, okay, well, okay, they're going to do the Last of Us skit and they're going to have this clicker come out with a huge, like, fungi sticking out of his head that we've all seen in the trailers for The Last of Us. It didn't happen. They didn't use that makeup at all in the show. That was very surprising. I know in SNL they do cut sketches last minute.
Sure.
Um, but for the most part, all the sketches were pretty decent. Um, when you have a celebrity that you know is tied to certain other celebrities, you sometimes think, okay, well, there's a possibility this other person can show up. So I was thinking that there's a high percentage that maybe Oscar Isaac was going to show up since they're very, very buddy buddy on
Sure.
social media. They're really close. And someone did show up in Sarah Paulson, who is really close friends with him. I learned this a few months ago, but they've been
Wow.
friends for a long time. And
Wow.
there's video of them like hanging out together and like on weekends and stuff. And there's pictures of them hanging out. And I thought, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, she appeared on the show, and she called herself mommy and called Pedro daddy. And that's kind of like the internet's nickname for Pedro Pascal, which is kind of funny and kind of head scratching in a way. But that's what he's known for on the internet. And they did a whole TikTok skit where he's doing TikTok. He's a teacher. Then he has students that are secretly filming him and making TikToks of him. And
That was hilarious.
it was the sketch. Usually, you would think they would front load the show with the funnier sketches, but I think the funniest sketch, there was two really really good sketches. There was one sketch where he was a patient that was in a coma, got knocked out, and he
Hilarious.
busted out with this crazy accent, this crazy voice. It didn't even feel like that voice was coming from his body. You got to see it to believe it. But that sketch and the sketch where he broke character and laughed and got other cast members to break character. It was a sketch where Ego Nwodum was cutting an extra
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 well
well
done
extra
steak.
extra well done steak. And I posted it on Twitter on Ad Stuff Pod, a segment of that sketch. And the basis is, and see, I don't even think that Pedro knew the dinner table was gonna move while she was cutting, because once it started moving, he just started cracking up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he already broke character. But yeah, Ego was cutting the steak, like sawing it. It's extra well, extra well, extra well done. And the whole table is shaking. The wine is spilling, food's kind of flying all over their plates. And there's a pitcher sitting on the table that's halfway filled. I was watching it the whole time, going back and forth, and nothing was flying out. The liquid was staying in, but I figured that pitcher was going to fly off the table at some point and just like crash. But one of the cast members, Punky Johnson, she held it every time it was on the edge. She put it back, and it was hilarious. You gotta definitely check it out.
I watched it twice because it was so funny. And I
Yeah,
actually think it's less Pedro breaking character, but him reacting to everybody else that's off camera. I think Andrew Yang, I think that's his name, Andrew
Bowen
Yang,
Yang.
Bowen Yang.
Yeah,
He's actually breaking character first, I believe, and Pedro just can't hold it in once he kind of pans over to see him and just loses it every single time. So he should have just stopped looking in that direction because Yang couldn't hold it in at all whatsoever. But I love that
yeah.
one. I love the ones you mentioned. I also loved
The Mario Kart.
Pedro. Well, yes, the Mario Kart, what they used to call digital shorts, right?
Yes, yes,
Digital shorts. That one was fantastic. That probably blew up. That was the first one that blew up all over the internet. But
yeah,
I also extremely appreciate Pedro playing the Hispanic mother
yes,
while her son is visiting with a woman who is American or Caucasian,
yeah.
and there's a little bit of lost in translation there. And I have Hispanic relatives. You probably have Hispanic relatives. There is a certain
Stereotype, yeah.
stereotypicalness, just a certain stereotype when you just have friends from different ethnicities you bring around or girlfriends that you bring around. And the further you kind of get away from generations, the further that doesn't happen anymore. But I'm sure this is something a lot of Hispanic individuals have gone through, bringing girlfriends or spouses or dates around the family and kind of going through this whole spiel in one form or another. That was just
Yeah,
hysterical. I was
yeah,
losing it. It was great.
that was really good. Yeah, he played the Spanish bomb to a T almost. And he would interchange his English with Spanish, and it felt like the crowd got a lot of the Spanish and were reacting to it,
Oh
which
yeah.
was interesting. And of course, New York is very much a melting pot, and a lot of the people that sit, I think, up in the bleacher area are people that are like visiting New York or
Yep.
able to get those tickets. I think all the down level tickets are for VIPs and for people that know other people kind of. But yeah, that all around, man, it was a good show, and I'm happy. And Coldplay was a musical guest, and I actually saw them last year, and I've seen Pedro in person. So I've seen both of them in person, which was pretty cool. I don't think I've achieved that before. I've been an SNL fan my whole life,
There
but
you go.
yeah, awesome overall. And of course, they did the play on The Last of Us, but it wasn't quite The Last of Us. They said from Nintendo Studios, and it looked like The Last of Us, but Pedro Pascal was playing Mario from Super Mario Brothers, and it was awesome. It was a play on that, and it was the next big HBO series, and they busted out the go-kart. Mario got in it. Princess Peach. I think they had Keenan Thompson play Bowser, and he was throwing the
Yes.
red shells. And yeah, and man, the digital capabilities they have now for these skits are pretty good, man. I was
That
kind of
was
like, wow,
impressive.
that's pretty good for a digital short type skit. But yeah, I know we're going on and on about the SNL. Uh,
They didn't hold back on that one. And oh man, I had one other thing to talk about. Completely lost it. I'm not gonna get it now. But yeah, no, the digital short was fantastic. It blew up everywhere. And I'm actually more interested in seeing this version of a Super Mario Brothers adaptation than I am the animated
yeah,
one that we're gonna get later on this year.
right,
So
right.
make it happen, HBO.
Yeah, yeah. That would be cool if we could get like maybe like an AI program to just render the whole season of that. That would be really cool. I would think.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Kudos to them. They got a great show to they executed a great show, I thought, and Pedro was fantastic. It feels like
absolutely.
to me that he is if he wasn't before, in my eyes, he's like a huge star now, and he's he has nothing to worry about as far as getting cast and stuff. And this part of 2023, it's Pedro nonstop. So it's I mean, you would figure that he would end up in London at Celebration and walk across that stage.
He's just a busy guy, though. You know what I mean? He's in high demand right now.
I don't know if there's any projects that have been advertised that he's a part of. Maybe a season two of Last of Us, but I'm not quite sure when that starts shooting because I know that's been greenlit. But Yeah, and of course he can do the audio recordings for The Mandalorian. I think just about anywhere in the world. All you need is an XLR connection, I think. But
For sure. He's got,
so,
I know he has a number of things coming up. Um, there's one TV show, My Dentist's Murder Trial,
it's a TV
and
show.
TV show. Yeah, yeah,
Is he the lead?
yeah. Looking into it right now. Yes, him and David Harbour are the two leads, and that's in pre-production, so that's going to get started here pretty soon. And then he's attached to another film with William Defoe and Morena Baccarin titled Tropico.
Nice.
I love Morena Baccarin.
Who doesn't?
I was just watching Deadpool 2 before I came on.
Oh wow, nice synchronicity there. How's it going, Robert? Welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. Tired, but happy to be here.
Yeah, we were just talking about Pedro Pascal's SNL episode that he
Incredible.
successfully. He did a fantastic job, I thought, and all the skits were pretty top notch.
He went for it. He definitely did. I even added a little flavor of it to our Last of Us reaction that we just did for the newest episode. There's a part from SNL in there.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So tonight, well, I guess yesterday, depending on what time zone you're in, the last episode, The Last of Us, aired. Ted hasn't seen it. I've seen it, and I'm pretty sure you have as well, Robert.
I definitely have.
So I saw some news earlier that due to the Super Bowl, HBO is going to release the next episode of The Last of Us on Friday, as opposed to Sunday.
See, I was wondering if that was going to change anything, because we're pretty busy already as it is on Super Bowl Sunday, and to add The Last of Us in there, it's going to be pretty rough. And I think the finale lands on Oscars. I could be wrong about that, but either way, it's going to happen while the Oscars are happening too.
Wow. Well, a lot of work for you, Robert.
Definitely.
And tonight was actually the Grammys. So, I mean, there was kind of a conflict there as well. So the next thing I wanted to talk about here was the fact that our composer for The Mandalorian season 1, season 2, Ludwig Göransson, Academy Award winner, is actually not going to score The Mandalorian season 3,
What?
nor is he going to score Creed 3. So I guess he has a thing against threes. But yeah, this report comes out from the Bespin Bulletin. It says, according to film music reporter Ludwig Göransson, who scored the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, will not score its 3rd season, despite Göransson not scoring season 3. Themes such as its iconic opening will still be used with the composer credited. The situation is similar to that of the Book of Boba Fett, where Göransson composed the opening and closing themes of the show and had Joseph Shirley compose the series. Following his work on Fett, Shirley will be stepping in to take over scoring duties on The Mandalorian season 3. Though not reported, it's likely Ludwig Göransson was unavailable to score the 3rd season of The Mandalorian due to his commitments to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which released in November, and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which releases this July. Göransson has also stepped away from scoring Creed 3, the installment of the Rocky spin-off series led by Michael B. Jordan, after scoring the first 2 films, and just as Joseph Shirley is stepping in to compose the score for The Mandalorian season 3, Shirley is also scoring Creed 3, which, just like Mando, releases next month. So, is it just a case of him just being super busy, kind of maybe worn out just a tad? What are your thoughts, Robert?
Oh, I think, when it comes to features and movies versus shows, a lot less work for him. So if he's only doing Oppenheimer, which it looks like that's it, like that's all he has in the forefront is Oppenheimer. I mean, he's been killing it across the board when it comes to all the scores. He's like Michael Giacchino. You're finding his name attached to everything. And I feel like, right now, because he is so successful and has gotten a lot of these properties on track in terms of audio, music, scoring, he can take a step back and step away and focus more on features, because hopefully he'll go from Oppenheimer to the Community movie, and get back, in leagues with them and Childish Gambino. But right now I feel like he doesn't have to do all that work, because scoring multiple episodes, multiple seasons for different shows and movies, like, he can take a step back right now and cool his heels while he hangs out with Christopher Nolan, of all people.
Yeah, I'm super anticipating Oppenheimer. That cast is ridiculous. It's Christopher Nolan, so it's kind of like one of those no-brain for us movies to go to and watch in the theater. And of course, we all expect excellence. I thought Dunkirk was just incredible. That's one of those movies that I didn't go see at the theater, but saw it on home video, and it was incredible, man. I think it's my favorite Christopher Nolan film, which it's splitting hairs because, of course, you got Interstellar and pick
Inception.
pick between
Inception,
Inception, and
Dark
for me
Knight
personally,
trilogy.
right, the Dark Knight trilogy. But what I was gonna say was Batman Begins for me, I think, is my favorite Batman film. It was so kind of under the radar and hit so hard, and that had a freakishly incredible cast, just ridiculous. I mean, all the names in that movie. It to me, that movie is still kind of under talked about and under regarded. But yeah, it's an interesting backstory with Ludwig, because he and Ryan Coogler were college classmates, and that's where they kind of met. And I think I heard in an interview where Ludwig stated that Ryan Coogler made the promise to him, if he made it big, he would be the composer for his stuff, and he kept his promise. And now Ludwig is a made man with the Academy Award win, the multiple Marvel movies now that he's done, and now he's branching out with Christopher Nolan, like we talked about. It's an incredible story, and he's a very young dude too. I think he's still in his 20s, like late 20s. So he's got an interesting career in front of him. Ted, did you have any thoughts on Ludwig kind of stepping away?
Yeah, as a musician, I've been performing for a little over 20 years now, and I also have a bachelor's in music. I feel that Goranson is a tremendous artist first, meaning that there's a whole nother layer or level to creating music, not just because he has the opportunity, but I feel like he's also looking for ways to push himself and to take on
Mm,
projects that might expect more of him creatively. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is one of those projects that like surpasses anything else that's ever been done before. It's really a completely different type of score because he's trying to create elements that are inspired by native civilizations in
yeah.
central and southern Mexico. The things that he does, the sounds from the 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 drums to the whistles to everything in between, it's just so incredible, and that's one of the best parts of that movie. So for me, I think that he's taking on these other challenges because artistically, it's pushing him to do something greater and to expand his horizons. And also, if Chris Nolan calls you for anything, you don't say no. It's one of the guys you don't say no to.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was another thing for him to just consider. If you've done 2 seasons of The Mandalorian and you feel that creatively you probably can't push yourself any further, it just makes complete sense to take on these other films, which are really stretching his mind creatively.
Especially because, like, one of the best things to come from Tenet was the score.
Mhm.
And that was the first time that they really partnered up. And then Joseph Shirley too. It's a cool thing that you're starting to see a lot when it comes to the composers is especially like with the Hans Zimmer camp, you're getting a lot of different composers that kind of came up with Hans Zimmer, learned from him, and then went off to do their own thing, like Junkie XL. But you've got Joseph Shirley, I guess, who was working with Ludwig Göransson for all these movies that they've been scoring. He's been arranging the music. He was like a technical advisor on it with him. So you kind of learn before you take the reins, which I prefer versus just bringing in a completely new composer. Yeah, you'll get a different flavor, maybe something new, but somebody who has been there learning it and studying under somebody that is as successful and creatively amazing as Ludwig Göransson, you're in good hands at that point versus just bringing in somebody, completely random in comparison.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit of thinking that, man, Ludwig is already going to leave and John Williams stayed the whole time. That type of kind of comparison between the two. But I think it's totally different generations. It's probably different schools of thought there. And of course, like Ted said, Christopher Nolan calls you. You're probably going to be like, hey, Disney, Christopher Nolan is asking me to do this mega huge epic summer blockbuster. And can I get a pass? I know Shirley is like, he's been with me the whole time.
We lost David.
Oh no.
David. ¿Dónde está David?
To finish his thought, yes, when when Christopher Nolan calls and it's arguably going to be his biggest movie ever, you can't pass on the opportunity.
And you gotta kind of wonder too. There's a lot of people coming in right now to Star Wars, especially Andor. So he didn't score Andor, and Andor's score is incredible. So it makes you wonder if it's like, okay, well, I did my part, and now you've got other people that are coming in and killing it.
Yeah.
Like you said, does he really need to show up in terms of doing anything new? Because there's really not a whole lot to do. The music's great for The Mandalorian. I love it. But have you heard Tenet? Like that, and have you heard Black Panther and Wakanda Forever? Like the stuff that he's doing there. And I just feel like it is a much higher level now compared to what he has done for 2 seasons of The Mandalorian.
Absolutely. And Disney has probably rights to a lot of the previous stuff. They'll reuse some stuff. They said they're already going to reuse the intro music. So I'm sure they can just pull things when they want to or slightly modify old things, which isn't bad. You can take old themes within previous scores and do new things with them, evolve them in certain ways. And that's what a lot of musicians or composers do to begin with, anyways.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I had a little technical difficulty there. My Wi-Fi just shut down, and I'm on my phone connection, so my
Been
phone
there.
might go slightly nuclear here. So the next thing I wanted to talk about were these 4 posters that dropped, and I'll read an article here from Bespin Bulletin again. It states, we are officially just 1 month away from the release of The Mandalorian Season 3, and promotion for the series is due to ramp up any time now. Recently, Trends International revealed a slew of new posters for the upcoming season, which, as expected, has a high focus on the Mandalorians, with Din Djarin expectedly featuring on 2 posters. One alongside Bo-Katan Kryze, and the other alongside Bo, the Armorer, and Paz Vizsla. The third poster focuses solely on our little green friend, Grogu. In addition to the Trends posters, Disney and Lucasfilm released a new official poster for the upcoming season. And you can see the 4 posters here on the screen. I have the first poster here if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. So it's the 4 prominent Mandalorians from the 2 previous seasons. You have Paz, you have the armor, you have Bo-Katan, and you have Din Djarin. The one character that I think kind of interests me, probably more so than than Din and Bo, is the armor. Are we gonna get more armor possible backstory in Mando season 3 or beyond? What do you guys think, Robert?
I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of Mandalorians kicking each other's asses. But yeah, I hope that there's more depth into everything that is Mandalorian. We've gotten so much lore when it comes to like the Clone Wars and Rebels, but now we get to see it in live action and maybe stuff we didn't know about at all or new things. Well, I guess that would be the same thing. It's redundant. But giving us, more of that deep lore, especially when it comes to, you know, what has been going on since the rise of the Empire and the fall of Mandalore, everything that is Mandalore. So I don't yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some badass Mandalorian ass kicking. Did you guys see Pedro Pascal when he was on I want to say it was like Fallon or Kimmel or and he was talking about how there's going to be big Mandalorian battle plural.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's something you would figure. Yeah, he Pedro Pascal was on Fallon because of course he did SNL and then Fallon films in the same building. So usually the host for SNL will do Fallon, which is what he did. And he did make that statement. They predominantly spoke about The Last of Us, but there was that blurb in there that Robert just mentioned that there are going to be battles, and you would figure. I mean, this new season of The Mandalorian looks a lot bigger, looks a lot grander. The budget looks bigger. The trailers at Celebration, man, were just phenomenal. They got you so hyped. Being in that room with that trailer, man, I was just like, oh my god, this is like getting back to Return of the Jedi with that space battle because some of the stuff they showed us was just incredible. And getting to see multiple Mandalorians on screen, I think that's been the dream for decades now. And we got a little taste of that in season 1, but I think to see them all kind of grouping together fighting the Empire, whatever foe they go up against, stormtroopers, what have you, it's going to be awesome. So this was the other poster that was dropped. I think most people have seen, and it's of Din Djarin holding the Darksaber with on top of the N1 starfighter, which hasn't really been named yet in the show, and Grogu sitting in the bubble where the astromech droid is eventually going to go. R5D4, shout out to him. So March 1st, we're less than a month away. Ted, what are your thoughts on these posters here?
Well, let me just first start out by saying I'm disappointed we're not getting Costco Reeves in season 3. I really wanted to see Mercedes back in the galaxy far, far away. It was exciting to see her. So, unfortunately, not seeing her. Um, I'm extremely looking forward to season 3 because once upon a time last year, Giancarlo told me himself that season 3 was going to be off the chain, quote unquote. And he was extremely excited about it. So even with before the trailers and everything else, it just kind of felt like they were going to push the limits on what they could do this season. And with everything that's been coming out since then, even the quote from Pedro Pascal, it just feels like it's going to be on a much bigger scale than what we've seen in the last 2 seasons. And I'm looking forward to it. Expanding this universe even more, um, upping the stakes. I mean, these are all necessary things that have to happen. And John Favreau and Dave Filoni, they are masters of storytelling. They understand these necessities, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's hopefully at Celebration. I don't know. Are you going to Celebration, Robert, in London?
in London, no, I am not.
Okay.
London is too far of a reach for us. But I mean, I wanted to go to the one that was in Anaheim if it wasn't for the kidney stone that I got 2 days before Celebration happened. But no, it's just it. it's too far. I can't make it.
Yeah, it's a little bit further for you considering where you're at in the country as
Yeah.
opposed to me. I'm gonna make the trip. I'm attempting it here, and hopefully we get a Mandalorian panel, which I mean you would figure since it's probably the hottest property that Disney Star Wars has going. Um, but yeah, that by that time, I'm trying to think we'll be halfway through the show, just about a little further than halfway. Um, there's speculation though. There's speculation as far as the video game side of the house because we got the 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 notice. I'll put it up here on screen for Jedi Survivor. So Jedi Survivor has been pushed back a few weeks to April 28th as a global release. So since this notice came out, there's been a lot of theories on why. And of course, the notice says that it's due to polishing up the game, fixing bugs, what have you. But have you guys heard any stories about why they're doing this? Um, do you guys have thoughts yourselves on why this is actually happening, or do you think they're not telling us something? Uh, because it's just a month that they're pushing it back. Could it have something to do with the Mandalorian or something to do with Ahsoka? I don't know. What do you guys think, Ted?
Ooh, I have not considered that thought. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that there may be implications of a crossover of characters, and so that may be a thing. However, it's EA. It's probably just they need to make sure it's releasable and not have any massive public backlash for a faulty or buggy game. We've seen that happen to other studios in the past. That's nearly bankrupted them. So if it's, I'll take them at their word for now, and hoping that they just put out a solid product on April 28th.
Yeah, I feel like they were just being produced too separately for them to coincide in such a way that they would arrange it within the episode release schedule of The Mandalorian. Those dates get passed around so much that it's just hard to kind of lock something down so connected. And I would love them for it if they did that, but it's Disney. They don't tend to do stuff like that, or at least effectively pull it off. Like I did hear rumors like Grogu maybe showing up in Jedi Survivor, but I don't know if it would really tie into anything that's going on in the series. Partly because at any point, one of them, either the game or the series, could have been pushed completely away longer than a month. So I do feel like it could just be more of just a technical issue of something that they're trying to fine tune and polish. Because I've been playing the PlayStation 5 version of Fallen Order recently, and it's buggy as hell for certain things. Like it's still
Interesting.
buggy as hell. It's the PS5 version. So,
Mm.
and that was one thing that kind of irked me about the Fallen Order. As great as the game as it was, and I had a lot of fun playing it, there were some mechanics that were just kind of janky. And I'm just wondering if, they're getting down to the wire and there's maybe just some code that they need to go through, and it's gonna at least be safer by a month. But it would be cool if there was some connective tissue to the Mandalorian, an episode or something. But I personally just think because it is EA, as you said, Ted, that it's more than likely going to be just because EA is putting in stupid microtransactions or something stupid. Knowing EA.
Yeah, and the narrative from the fans the whole time has been, why would you cast Monahan as Cal Kestis and not use that same live action actor in something? Kind of going back to my point with the four Mandalorians in that poster. I mean, you have the armor and you have Emily Swallow, who's an accomplished actress. Her face is totally covered with the helmet, like with the whole kind of cult of the Mandalorian that she's in. But it's kind of like why is it just maybe for just in case the story goes that way, or do you think we're reaching? Because it feels like to me, after kind of going through all these theories and all these kind of conspiracy stories that people are coming up with, it feels like maybe they're just dropping the release date back so that maybe they could have a panel at Celebration when that happens between the 7th and 10th, so they can build up the game more. And maybe they're not satisfied with the pre-orders, and maybe they want to just market it a whole lot more. So I'm thinking more along those lines, because it's an odd thing, because you would figure they would try and fix the bugs on the fly like they always do. That's kind of my thought on this.
That's very true. Yeah, they do kind of just fix everything after the fact. That's just what game companies do, patches and updates. So, yeah, it could be due to the panel, or they don't want everybody sitting on their butts playing, Jedi Survivor when they should be watching The Mandalorian or something. I don't know. They don't want to cannibalize their own, but then again, it's the same company that put Marvel and Disney at the same exact day. Luckily, they were smart enough to move them, but they had no foresight when they first came up with those dates that, oh damn, maybe we shouldn't have these two big companies releasing their episodes at the exact same time on the exact same day. But they figured that out eventually.
Makes me think of the Solo release. They released Solo less than a month and a half from Infinity War, and Deadpool 2 came out as well in between that. So it's like that imperfect storm that Solo was.
Sure.
So we did get news that I think this is it's kind of uncommon for Disney to talk about May 4th as much as they just did, but the second season of Visions is going to drop on Star Wars Day, the unofficial Star Wars Day, or is it official now? I don't know. May 4th this year, Visions will drop, and these are all the studios that we will get these animated shorts from. What do you guys think of the first season of Visions? I don't know I think, Ted, you're an anime fan, I believe. What did you think of that first season?
Yeah, I dabble in anime. I think my favorite series that I've seen is probably Castlevania, and that's just because I'm a big video game fan.
Yeah.
But I love sort of not just Visions, but anytime they do these sort of side projects, even the Grogu short that they did with
Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli. That was even, it was worth watching. It was cute. I enjoyed it a lot. So looking forward to more of this sort of outside content, where they allow studios to, stretch their creative juices and participate in the Star Wars universe. Looking forward to it.
So, like, with the varying episodes that Visions had, like, I am not an anime fan. In fact, I'm very not versed at all when it comes to anime. Even like the Ghibli stuff, the only thing I've ever seen is like Grave of the Fireflies when I was 13. Broke my heart, and I never went back to watch anything else. But it was just never something. And Ninja Scroll. Ninja Scroll was pretty badass. I got it back here somewhere. But that's it. So when I was able to kind of get acquainted with more styles and lore in Star Wars with Star Wars Visions, I absolutely loved it. Like Tatooine Rhapsody, like that episode, that song that they ended up, the songs that they were playing with the band in that episode, like was my favorite thing. Like we listened to it for like a week constantly because there's just so, and I wouldn't think that the episode about a band would be like my favorite one out of all of them, especially like with episodes like The Duel, which was the first episode in that season. But it's the different styles, it's the different execution of Star Wars that I'm really excited for season 2 of Visions. I just don't know how the viewership is. It got a second season, but our viewership was terrible. So it was more so about like us enjoying it on our own. And I think a lot of people did too. It's not reaction worthy for the most part. It's just damn good. Like it's well made. And yeah, you could tell that all these creators of anime are Star Wars fans in their own way, and they brought it to, or at least crossed it over with different styles and different stories in anime that made it definitely worth a second season, I think. So I'm looking forward to what they have in store.
Yeah, totally. I was a big fan of that season 1. It really kind of surprised me. And watching those shorts, it really felt like it was almost a way of Lucasfilm kind of getting ideas from other creators to make new content in a way, because it felt like it was like a brainstorming session that people had on their own little islands, and then created something and really kind of got my creative juices flowing on what else you could do with Star Wars, with the IP. And there's always a certain level of frustration that Lucasfilm doesn't give us live action stuff like what the animated stuff has done. And there's a certain level of just gambling in a way, because I mean Star Wars stuff has to hit a certain way, or else it's just not an option for something Star Wars not to be successful. And of course, people point back to Solo, and Solo still made money. It basically made its money back. It wasn't a $1 billion hit like most of these Disney Star Wars live action films have been. And of course, The Mandalorian was a huge hit. But I would love to see Star Wars take more risks in live action, the TV shows. And I always point back to Marvel. They release like 4 films a year. Star Wars, I think it's a crime not to at least release one live action film, which hopefully at Celebration we'll get that announcement, maybe with the Damon Lindelof walking across that stage, making the announcement of maybe a possible, I know a lot of people cringe at this, but maybe episode 10, and maybe doing a trilogy. I don't know, because there's reports out there that Ted's saying no way. But
They were talking to Daisy.
yeah, and I always point back to that. People say, yeah, nah, don't make a big deal about that. She was just visiting. But I mean, she lives in the UK. She made a trip all the way out to California for a visit. And you don't think they spoke about Star Wars? I'm pretty sure they did. And Rey's one of the most beloved characters from the sequel trilogy as well. I mean, there's a lot of Rey fans out there. And she's not talking like John Boyega in the media saying, I don't want to be in a Star War. It's Daisy Ridley is kind of up for it. She's back on social media. She's posting Star Wars pictures. And I think there's something to that. I really think there's something to that. It would be a nice surprise to see her show up at Celebration, because that's her country. She's already there. Have a big announcement, a big splash. She's coming back, and it doesn't have to be necessarily in the films. It feels like when Disney set up the sequel trilogy, they casted young enough actors to come back a whole lot sooner than the original trilogy Big Three did. So that's kind of where I stand. So
Nice.
So the Legacy of Nerds says, "Dang, it's late."
That's why I'm here.
Late to the party. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about here was, I'm trying to find the picture. Did you guys notice? Are you guys car fans at all?
No,
Not really.
I drive a car.
Yeah, I
That
drive a
count?
car too. I have a few cars, but none as nice as you can find here. So apparently they went to a McLaren factory on the show floor here, a lot like what they did with Rogue One, where they filmed at Canary Wharf, the underground in London. They shot this scene, which was basically the ship station in Andor. And apparently, they're shooting currently right now, and this is in London. So this is a picture I got from Bespin Bulletin. It's the McLaren Tech Center. And having these sites like this, I think, are so interesting, because it's a site you can actually go to. And I know when I'm going to London, I'm going as soon as I can to Canary Wharf and taking as many pictures as possible, because of course Rogue One is super beloved. It's one of my favorite Star Wars films. And there's actually going to be a 501st bash held there. I don't have tickets for it. Hopefully, I can procure some tickets since I am a 501st member. I know they're all sold out, but this place in London, there are actual reports that Cassian Andor of Diego Luna has not been in London for a while, even though they're shooting right now. There's a report that there's going to be a kind of like a offsite trip to a spot in Spain, and they're going to actually shoot some stuff, maybe on like some old castles or something. That I heard a report stating that there's something pertaining to that. I'm not sure story wise how that relates, but have you guys heard anything about the difference in the Andor shooting? I know it didn't really shoot much in London. It shot on off sites, but it looks like they're going to venture off. And does it surprise you that it feels like Disney's taking on more budget, it seems like, for a show that didn't do so great in the viewership and the ratings for Disney Plus?
Yeah, viewership was garbage, man, and it breaks my
Yeah.
heart. At least for us, just for us. Like there was a nice little, bump when it came to some of the bigger episodes, but it breaks my heart to see Andor as low as it was. But
Yeah.
I love that although, even the viewership being low, and before they would find out that the viewership would be low, they invested in 2 seasons. They invested in at least telling us, a chunk of the story that if they wanted to, they can just end it with season 2 and we go right into Rogue One. So the fact that they invested so much into location shootings versus the volume. And for that, like the fact that they've been going back to places, that they're going to new places, I love them for it, because that's one of the things I marveled at was the location shootings and the sets that they built, and just the towns and the not so much the aliens. There wasn't a whole lot of those, which is weird. Why are you afraid of putting aliens in your damn shows, Disney? But yeah, like the investment, at least I see it being there when it comes to throwing money at it, getting the production value on a movie level. And I'm just hoping this doesn't make them, gun shy in the future to not do it for the next thing and then decide, well, maybe it's just better if we go volume, but they're only doing it because they said yes to Andor for 2 seasons. But there's a balance there. I hope there's some kind of a return. I think K2SO, if K2SO does show up with, which if you're going to end it with season 2, you need K2SO. I mean, he's a big part of that leading into Rogue One. So for me, I would love it if Andor went on for 5 seasons, 6 seasons, and then into Rogue One. But three at the minimum. But it's at least good to see that they invested money and time and energy into 2 seasons worth of Star Wars, at least guaranteeing us 2 seasons. When everything else, you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, with Andor, it was at the very beginning, which I think all the fans have been clamoring for. It's a finite story for 2 seasons, season 1, season 2. Season 2 is going to directly lead up to the events of the film Rogue One. So unfortunately, we can't get a 3rd season unless they condense that 2nd season. There's a dramatic reversal of viewership, and it becomes the most popular series where they just cut the season in half that they were going to do and make it into a 3rd season. I heavily doubt they're going to do that, but it does give me hope that Disney sees a creator like Tony Gilroy and just upfront green lights what he wants to do and kind of stays away. And he said, I want to film on location. I said, okay, cool. You can do that. We found out later that he did use a little bit of the volume stuff, but not a lot. And I think it really shows on screen in comparison to the shows like Obi-Wan, and Book of Boba Fett, where it looked a little smaller. But for TV, of course, you don't have that massive, huge budget that you have for a feature film. But yeah, I think Andor's gonna do that thing where you see a really good film at the theater, nobody sees it, but it does great on the secondary, 3rd market, and people are gonna eventually watch the show, which reports are they are doing right now. There is a little bit. I think it's plateaued in viewership, and it's not dropping as much as they figured it would. So people are discovering the show, and then you have the whole section of people that said, "Oh, I'm just going to wait and binge the whole thing when all the shows drop." So that's happened, and I think if there's a big marketing blitz for Andor season 2, people that didn't see Andor 1 are going to go back, check it out, and then with all the Mandalorian stuff coming back up, um, maybe Celebration stuff are going to be in the heart of their shooting in that country, and maybe we'll get some Andor stuff. And of course, for Celebration, Lucasfilm always has a live camera on those panels, and you'll be able to see that stuff on StarWars.com unless they change it. Hopefully they don't, because I know there's a lot of people that really wanted to go to London that can't. And of course, if I go, hopefully I am going to make it there. Hopefully I win those lotteries to get into those panels. That's the other big thing, that it's going to really suck if I go there and don't win any lotteries and I'm just outside the door. So hopefully that happens. So Ted, what are your thoughts on this?
What was the original question? I'm just kidding.
We've been gone for so long.
I'm trying to recall exactly the timeline that we're supposed to be expecting. Let's see. Andor season 1 was sort of told within a matter of maybe weeks, maybe months, or lesser part of a year. But the next season is supposed to take place over 3-4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
It's going to take place every 3 episodes is going to be a year.
There you go.
Before Rogue One.
Nice.
So every 3 episodes is going to be a block directed by a single director.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm getting at, is expect massive time jumps that are going to be felt in a certain way. Perhaps, we're just going to get these 4 separate arcs in this second season that are going to be very clear and very decisive, and I'm okay with that. Season 1 also showed us a lot of additional characters. Yes, we're following, Diego Luna and Andor throughout this, but there is a whole slew of supporting characters in this series. And so Diego not sort of being on this set doesn't, kind of ring any alarms or raise any red flags for me, because there's just so many characters in this series. I also hope that as we are getting closer to the events of Rogue One, they might sprinkle in the characters from Rogue One that are necessary. I'm not expecting Jin to be around, obviously, but I am hoping that they try and really have a very nice transition for us by putting in characters that make sense. I'm expecting, Forrest Whitaker probably to show up somewhere in the second season for sure, a lot. But additional characters from Rogue One that we, should expect to see. I'm looking forward to it. I think that this second season, well, let's take a step back. The first season was your stepping stone. You were building the foundation, you were laying the groundwork, and you've successfully launched your war campaign. That's what the first season was about. And so, really looking forward to the second season and what they do.
The time jumps do seem very reminiscent too of what House of the Dragon just did. And I loved it. Like, it worked for me. Like, it left me wanting more. And we all know Disney's all about that, subsequent novels and books and everything to fill in the blanks, games. But I don't know what it was. For some reason, just skipping through time and jumping to like the meat of the battle of what's coming. Like, I don't know. It worked for me. And I feel like if Andor does that, damn, like if they can make it tighter and make this, us basically running towards Rogue One, you think Krennic and Dedra would end up like working together? Or you think Krennic's off doing his Death Star stuff?
I think that's gonna happen. We're gonna see both of them on screen. They both love to wear white.
I can't wait.
And I think the rumors are Ben Mendelsohn is returning. But what
Please.
Ted said, and you, Robert, alluded to earlier, you want to see more aliens. I'd love to see Pow and Biston show back up. The space monkey alien that was shooting the gun that shot the AT-ACT down.
Dude, that whole crew. That whole crew, all of them. What's his name? The I forgot his name. The one that's there, he was in prison with him. It's been a while
Melshi.
since Melshi.
Yeah.
That crew, like I want that crew maybe one of the 3 episodes. Get that crew working with Andor, going off, doing a mission, something crazy. That's when you have Saw Gerrera come in, like they're all doing their thing.
And if you remember, 3PO and R2 were in that base as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be rolling around the back of Chopper, Hera, General Syndulla was called over the intercom.
You think they're
all kind of around, yeah.
You think they'll save them just for Ahsoka? As much as I want Chop to get in on some of the action?
My answer is no. They are not being saved.
You think you think they'll be in Andor? Or you already know they'll be in Andor?
I mean, not
word
so
on
much.
The street.
Yeah, word on the street is, and we talked about this on the podcast years ago about the fact that they have a fully functional, newly created Yoda puppet for The Last Jedi, and they're not utilizing that puppet at all. It's sitting in a box somewhere in England. I mean, you would figure you cast certain actors and you have multiple projects happening and intertwining at Manhattan Beach Studios in California in Mandalorian Season 3, possibly another season of Book of Boba Fett, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka. It's like 4 possible projects all filming simultaneously. And if you have those certain Rebels characters, so walk across the lot and go to the next soundstage and appear,
And it's kind of legit because you get them during Rebels era, so it's like they're just being transplanted. But would you do Mary Elizabeth Winstead as like Hera still? You start getting into the age gap, but I guess it's not that much of an age gap. No, that's actually probably the lesser of all age gaps because New Hope to Mandalorian ain't that long.
Right.
So,
and of
course you could do Mary Elizabeth.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I'm for it. Okay, bring the Rebels. I don't care. Do 3 episodes. Do one of the 3 episodes with Rebels crew. Who would you do Kanan then?
Well,
Kanan would Kanan. Yeah, Kanan would be around by that at that time, wouldn't he? Oof.
I don't know if the
not.
timeline matches up because spoilers for Rebels. He kind of doesn't make it at the end.
If you're watching this show at 1 a.m. when it's happening, okay, what happened to Kanan.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. I think the fans have a lot to be excited for. They could possibly drop some super huge stuff on us at Celebration. And I think they're withholding a lot of stuff. I think we're going to get casting for everyone. I think we're going to get Thrawn casting at Celebration. I think we're going to get an announcement of the future film slate. I think they're going to have a plan. And if it is Damon Lindelof, he's been thinking about Star Wars since he was a little kid, since he was able to read and write. Not a fan of Damon Lindelof, Robert?
I watched every episode of Lost as it aired every Wednesday, all the way through the end. Right, so you get. We went on that ride together. Elongated and winded, Damon Lindelof tends to be, and you can tighten him up, please. Yes, let's not drag our feet. And it was ABC too, which is Disney, and that's my only worry with the pairing too. Same with Once Upon a Time. Like there is just this elongated sense of storytelling that Lindelof can get trapped in. And but then what's the one he did for HBO, and it was one and done. It was Watchmen, of course. Incredible. So if you can do it tight, but look what happened. It was like, and I'm done. That's what he needs to do. He needs to be like, I'm doing this, we're building this, and then let's go, we're done. And if he can do that instead of what they did with Lost and Once Upon a Time and all the other stuff they produced and came up with, then we're good. But Watchmen, also another property that feels like didn't get the massive audience that you think it should have gotten, and just in terms of
under-celebrated, under-reviewed. I agree.
But
it was a masterpiece.
Good stuff, great stuff.
Yeah. Did any of you guys watch his other HBO series that he did, which was The Leftovers?
That was the other one. Yeah,
I did
dude.
not.
Christopher Eccleston's episode. He's a priest, I believe,
Oh wow.
in this town who gets left behind.
Oh
So when right, right.
yeah,
So he's a preacher or something, and he gets left behind. And his episode, when you get to like why he got left behind,
interesting.
oh, dude, it's like you take the doctor and you're like, that's the fucking doc right there. Sorry, I cussed on your channel, but dude, it's like Eccleston kills it. And then I tapped out at that point because I was like, this is just peak. I'm done. I didn't care about the rest of the show just because everybody else wasn't as interesting, in my opinion, compared to him.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen The Leftovers, and yeah, the show's PG-13, so you got the one F-bomb in there. So
There you go. You get one.
So yeah, I'm excited for Celebration. I'm going, like I said. Hopefully, lots of surprises. Hopefully, everyone can watch. It'll be. I think the panels will be later in the day because of the time differential. I think there's an 8-hour difference between us and Central Time, where I'm located. So yeah, people should not have to take days off of work or whatever to watch the stuff unless they air it earlier in the day. I don't know, but. Yeah, super excited. Thanks everyone for joining, Ted, Robert, on short notice. But yeah, I love
Very short
podcasting with you.
notice.
I love podcasting with you guys. Yeah, I had a lot going on, and yeah, Ted, can you tell the people where they can find you at?
Absolutely. You can find us at Countdown City Geeks on YouTube or countdowncitygeeks.com to find sort of all of what we're doing these days. And one last thing about Celebration, I'm most looking forward to more from The Acolyte, which is probably the most intriguing project that they've announced in recent years. Probably too soon for a full trailer, but hopefully at least some sort of a sizzle reel or a teaser trailer would be ideal. Looking forward to it.
I say if James Gunn can film Guardians of the Galaxy for 2 weeks and then come to San Diego Comic-Con and bring a full-blown trailer, they can give us a decent trailer for Acolyte because they've been filming for a while now in the UK. So I'm expecting those actors to walk across that stage. So, Robert, where can the people find you?
Dude, I'm so excited for Lee Jung Jae from Squid Game and Acolyte, dude.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
I cannot wait. I'm so happy for their success. Late to the party. Watch our Bad Batch reactions on our chat. That's another one that's hurting, man. But we're having a hell of a time with the Bad Bitch. So watch them. Come check them out. Late to the party. Bad Batch. Every
for
Wednesday. Yeah. And in Mandalorian season 3, which is a big deal right now in our household.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge as we prognosticated here.
Sure.
So for Ted, Robert, my name is David. May the force be with you all.
Ways.